The noise from Jake's victory party hit me like a physical wall the moment I pushed the heavy door open. The air was thick with sweat, cheap beer, and the electric buzz of success. My boyfriend's band, Chromatic Fall, had just taken first place at the biggest battle of the bands our state had ever seen. And there he was, my Jake Miller, right in the center of the storm, a king holding court. But his throne wasn't empty. Sitting so close beside him, her leather-clad leg was pressed flush against his jeans, was Sloane Hart, the bassist. The only girl in the group. She was holding his glass of amber whiskey, her lips resting exactly where his had been moments before as she took a slow sip. "Your solo tonight was next level, Jake," she said, her voice cutting through the din just enough for me to catch it from the doorway. I swear the lead judge's jaw was on the floor. As if to punctuate her point, she casually draped her arm over his shoulders. The dim, colorful lights caught the sequins on her tank top, sending tiny, blinding stars shooting across the room. The producer, a man in a too-tight vintage band tee, clapped Jake on the back. "Studio time is booked for next Thursday. To our frontman," he boomed. Jake grinned, that easy, blinding smile that had been my sunrise for as long as I could remember, and clinked his glass against Sloane's. The entire band erupted in another roar. The celebration was a living, breathing creature, hot and hungry. And I was frozen in its doorway, a ghost already forgotten. It felt like an eternity before his eyes, bright with triumph and alcohol, finally scanned the room and landed on me. A flicker of confusion, then a gesture. "Come here. Chloe? Why are you just standing there?" he called out. Suddenly, several pairs of eyes swiveled toward me. Sloane's gaze was the only one that held a weight, a quiet, knowing challenge. I didn't walk to Jake. I veered to a shadowed corner, sank into a sticky booth, and gripped my phone so hard I thought the screen might crack. Automatically, I opened the campus forum. It was a sea of Chromatic Fall takes first posts. The top video, already with thousands of views, was the moment they announced the win. The camera shook with the crowd's energy, zooming in as Sloane, with a scream of pure joy, launched herself into Jake's arms. He laughed, a full-bodied sound of victory, caught her effortlessly, and spun her around in a wide, dizzying circle. Her legs wrapped around his waist. The comments were a wildfire. "New rock royalty couple just dropped. Jake Miller and Sloane Hart. The visuals are insane. Hot guy, hot girl shared passion. It's literally perfect. Just get married already. The chemistry is lethal. I heard Jake's dating that quiet girl from the science college, Chloe something? All ancient history. They broke up ages ago, keep up. Hey, future sister-in-law." Sloane's voice, sweetened with fake concern, sliced through my spiraling thoughts. She had somehow materialized at the edge of my booth, tilting her head. "Why are you sitting over here all alone on your phone? You don't look like you're having fun." Her pout was a masterclass in performance. Were we being too loud? I clicked my phone screen off, the light dying. Jake, noticing the interaction, set his drink down and walked over. "She's fine," he said, his hand coming to rest on the back of my neck. A familiar gesture that now felt oddly possessive, like he was calming a skittish pet. "Chloe's just used to quiet. Big crowds aren't really her thing." Sloane dragged out the syllable. "Oh. I see." She drifted back to Jake's side, leaning into his personal space with practiced ease. "But Jake, your personalities are so different. How did you two even get together? Who chased who? I'm dying to know." She blinked up at him, all wide-eyed curiosity. Jake just shrugged, taking a swig of his drink. "We grew up next door to each other. Been friends since we were in diapers. Just happened, I guess." Someone from the band hooped. "Childhood sweethearts. That explains the deep roots." Sloane giggled, a light tinkling sound. "Maybe you just got together so young you didn't know what else was out there." Her carefree smile flashed, her eyes skating over me like I was a piece of uninteresting furniture. "Honestly, I don't think you're a great match." The words hung in the smoky air. For 15 years I had been the quiet one, the understanding one. I had swallowed every moment of jealousy, every snide comment from his new friends, every time he chose the band, chose her, over our plans. I had bottled it all up, believing our history was an unbreakable fortress. But in that moment, looking at Sloane's triumphant smirk and Jake's oblivious face waiting for me to just absorb the insult like I always did, something inside me snapped. A cold, sharp clarity settled in my veins. I let my lips curve into a faint, icy smile and lifted my gaze to meet Sloane's directly. "Oh," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "If I'm not a match for him, then who is?" "You." I shifted my eyes to Jake. "Should I just hand you over to her now and save everyone the time?" The effect was instantaneous. The pockets of conversation around us died. The guitarist's riff faltered mid-chord. You could have heard a pin drop in the sudden, suffocating silence. No one, least of all Jake, could believe that Chloe Sullivan, the gentle, bookish, perpetually patient Chloe, had just publicly torn the facade apart. Jake's face cycled through shock, embarrassment, and finally anger. Someone, the drummer, quickly tried to patch the hole in the atmosphere. "Whoa, hey Chloe, don't listen to her. Sloane talks before she thinks, you know that. She didn't mean anything by it, right, Sloane?" Sloane immediately raised her hands in a dramatic surrender, her eyes wide with faux innocence. "Oh my God, Chloe, I am so sorry. Seriously, this stupid mouth of mine. It just runs away. Please, please don't take it to heart." The performance was flawless. I just looked at her, my faint smile not wavering, and said nothing. Seeing my silence as further provocation, Jake's frown deepened. He set his glass down with a sharp clink. "Chloe, what is your problem?" His voice was low, tense. "Everyone's happy today. Why do you have to ruin the mood?" He gestured toward Sloane, who was now looking at the floor, the picture of wounded confusion. "Sloane is just straightforward. She doesn't overthink every little thing like you do. It was a dumb comment. Was it really worth making a scene over?" There was. In his eyes, I was the problem. The sensitive, mood-killing girlfriend. Sloane's thoughtlessness was just refreshing honesty. My heart didn't break then. It didn't have the energy. It simply sank like a stone, down through the floor and into some cold, dark sea where nothing mattered anymore. "Fine," I thought, the coldness inside me solidifying. "If that's who I am to you now, then I'll be it. I'll burn it all down." I looked straight into Jake's angry, frustrated eyes, picked up my phone, and with deliberate calm, opened Sloane's social profile. I didn't have to scroll far. There was. Last month, after a late-night practice session. A photo of Sloane wearing an obviously oversized men's t-shirt, one I'd bought Jake for his birthday, lying sprawled across a large, dark gray bed hugging a pillow. The caption, "Successfully commandeered the captain's quarters. Sorry Jake, couch for you tonight. #BandLife #shortstory." Beneath it, another photo. A crumpled couch, a blanket in a heap, and half of Jake's sleepy face, giving the middle finger to the camera with a grumpy but amused expression. I kept scrolling. Last Wednesday, a picture of Sloane holding a huge matcha ice cream cone, her other hand wrapped tightly around Jake's bicep as she leaned against him, taking a bite of his ice cream. Choosing one flavor is too hard. This greedy girl wants both. "Jake, can I have a bite?" "Fine. Hit me if you want." Finally, my finger stopped on her most recent post from less than an hour ago. The photo of him spinning her around, her face alight with joy. The caption, "This moment. Ours." I lifted my head, my phone held out like evidence. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "This," I said, my voice clear in the dead quiet, "is what you call straightforward and innocent?" Jake's brow furrowed, his patience clearly at its end. "Chloe, not this again. You're digging up old stuff to start a fight." "Why shouldn't I?" I shot back, not backing down an inch. Any girl with an ounce of respect for another girl's relationship knows where the line is. Or do you disagree with that basic concept? Suddenly, Sloane shot to her feet. "Oh my God." Her voice was a mix of frustration and theatrical confusion. Jake was standing right next to me. I was excited. I hugged him. "So what? It was a normal hug. Do you have to make everything so gross and weird?" She turned to the room, appealing to the jury. "She's right, it was just excitement," the drummer chimed in again nervously. "Hugging to celebrate is totally normal. No hidden meaning." "Is that so?" I stared directly at Sloane, pronouncing each word with cold precision. What an amazing coincidence. When you're excited, the only person worth hugging is the one with a girlfriend. Not the drummer. Not the guitarist. Just him. "Is that how your excitement works, Jake?" Jake suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly. His expression was dark, stormy. "That's enough," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You're making a scene over nothing. Everyone is happy today. Do you really have to ruin it? He took a step toward me, his anger a palpable force. If you want to break up, Chloe, then just say it. The room seemed to warp and stretch. I saw the little boy who climbed through my window when I was 10 and my world was falling apart. I saw the teenager who promised me the stars under a blanket of real ones. I saw all of it, and then I saw the stranger in front of me. Fine, I said, the word leaving my lips like a stone. Let's break up. The silence that followed my words wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a vacuum, sucking the heat and life right out of the room. Jake's face went blank, his anger momentarily wiped away by pure, uncomprehending shock. He stared at me as if I'd started speaking in a forgotten language. Sloane's dramatic facade cracked, revealing genuine surprise. She'd wanted to needle me to prove her dominance, but she hadn't expected the castle to collapse so completely. It was Sloane who broke the spell with a choked sob. "What are you guys doing?" she wailed, her hands flying to her face. "Why are you breaking up because of me? Jake and I are innocent. We didn't do anything." She turned to Jake, grabbing his sleeve, her tears now looking terrifyingly real. "Jake, tell her. Please explain. It's my fault, okay? I'm sorry. Please don't break up, I can't handle this, I really can't." Her panic seemed to jerk Jake back to reality. His eyes snapped from her clutching hands to my impassive face. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Fine," he said, the word rough. "You said it." There was a challenge there, a desperate hope that I'd immediately recant. I met his gaze, the coldness inside me forming a perfect, impermeable shield. "Yes," I replied calmly. "I did." I turned, my movements mechanical, and pushed my way back through the heavy door. This time I didn't look back. The night air outside was a slap of cool relief, washing away the stifling beer and perfume stench of the party. I walked without direction, the concrete beneath my feet solid and real. The celebratory shouts from inside grew muffled, then disappeared, replaced by the distant hum of the city and the lonely sound of my own footsteps. The wind picked up, cutting through my thin jacket and stealing what little warmth the adrenaline had provided. Then my phone buzzed softly in my death grip hand. It was an email from my faculty advisor, Dr. Evans. "Chloe, regarding the full-ride exchange scholarship to Stanford. Have you had a chance to discuss it with Jake? I understand you're young and in love and long distance is daunting, but I must urge you not to let temporary personal attachments hinder your academic trajectory. You have exceptional potential. This opportunity is tailor-made for your research interests. Your future must come first. Please let me know your decision at your earliest convenience. Best, Dr. Evans." I stopped walking, standing under a flickering street lamp. Stanford. The neuroscience research program. It was everything I'd worked for since I first understood how a synapse fired. Jake's response when I'd tentatively brought it up months ago had been a distracted, "California? That's like a whole other planet, Chloe. We'll figure it out." We never did. I didn't hesitate. My thumbs flew over the screen. "Dr. Evans, you're absolutely right. I'll be accepting the scholarship. Thank you for believing in me. Sincerely, Chloe Sullivan." A wave of something, not relief, not yet, but a stark, clean certainty washed over me. I was making a choice for myself. The reply came almost instantly. "Excellent. The final slot goes to you and Liam Carter. It will be good for you two to have a familiar face out there." He's already accepted. Liam Carter. The name was a steadying presence in my spinning world. Liam was the undisputed academic star of our year. While Jake lived in a world of sound and spotlights, Liam existed in a realm of silent, intense focus. Labs, datasets, and arcane journals. We'd been partners in 2 advanced seminars. He was brutally brilliant, unsettlingly quiet, and possessed a mind so orderly it sometimes scared me. As if summoned by the thought, a new notification popped up. A message from Liam himself. "Chloe," Dr. Evans informed me. "Attached are the official acceptance and visa forms. Please complete and return to me by Thursday so I can consolidate the paperwork for the department. No congratulations. No questions. Just efficiency." Attached were 2 perfectly formatted PDFs. I typed back. "Received. Thank you, Liam." Immediately, another file came through. Stanford _prep _backlist v1.2.xx. I opened it and my breath caught. It was staggering in its detail. Tab sections 4. Visa document tracker, recommended housing near campus with cost comparisons and commute times, step-by-step guide for university and local registration, essential medications to pack, power adapter specifications for the lab equipment we'd likely use, even a price list for groceries at supermarkets within walking distance of the graduate dorms. A follow-up message appeared. I compiled this from the experiences of last year's cohort. It is a reference, not a prescription. Adjust as needed. I stared at the screen. In the midst of my personal earthquake, someone had built me a bunker made of spreadsheets and logic. Thank you again. This is incredible. His reply was characteristically swift. You're welcome, Chloe. But you say thank you to me too often. Even through text, I could picture his slight frown, his clear blue eyes behind his practical glasses, as if excessive gratitude was an inefficiency to be corrected. Liam Carter was a paradox. Always the first to silently straighten out a critical error in my lab report or take over my data analysis when I'd had the flu last semester, yet he acted like any acknowledgement of his help was unnecessary noise. So I took a breath and typed something new. Then let me take you to lunch tomorrow. As a proper thank you. Several minutes passed. Then, all right. Get some sleep. Terminating. The conversation was over. I put my phone away, but old habits die hard. Almost automatically, I opened my social feed. And there she was. Sloane Hart. A new post, timestamped just minutes ago. What do you do when a crazy person decides you're the villain in their delusion? So unlucky. Like every girl is just dying to steal her prize. That level of insecurity is honestly pathetic. #drama, #over it. The comments from the band members were already piling up, a chorus of support. Hug Sloane. Ignore the toxic people. Don't be sad. Next time hug me, I'm girlfriend free. She's clearly unhinged. You're better off without that negativity in your orbit. A sharp, bitter smile touched my lips. I didn't feel angry. I felt a profound, weary disgust. With a few swift taps, I blocked her entire band and anyone associated with them. Then I shut my phone off completely. The silence it left was a blessing. The next day in the campus dining hall, I was just sitting down across from Liam when my phone exploded. It vibrated against the laminated table with a frantic, angry energy. Jake's name flashed across the screen. I felt every eye at nearby tables flick toward me. After the 5th consecutive call, I answered, bracing myself. What did you do? Jake's voice was a furious roar, so loud Liam glanced up from his textbook. Sloane quit the band. Because of your little psycho performance last night. She feels so guilty she's cut off all contact. What did she ever do to you, Chloe? She's friendly. He hugs people. That's who she is. Why did you have to take your paranoia and blow up everything? You forced her out. Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? I held the phone slightly away from my ear, looking at the sleek black device as if it were a venomous insect. Listening to him defend her, frame me as the unstable aggressor, the last fragile thread connecting me to our past dissolved. The coldness from last night returned, clean and sharp. I brought the phone to my lips, my voice clear and devoid of all emotion. Yes, I said. Very satisfied. I ended the call and blocked his number. When I looked up, Liam was returning to the table with 2 trays of food. I flushed with embarrassment. I'm so sorry. I said I was treating you and then He sat down unfazed. Behind his glasses, his gaze was as calm and analytical as ever. Put it on the tab, he said simply. Next time you can buy me something better. He began to eat his lunch. A depressing-looking assembly of plain grilled chicken, steamed broccoli and brown rice. It was the meal of a man who viewed food solely as fuel. As we ate in a silence that was strangely comfortable, I felt a flicker of that steadiness I'd felt looking at his spreadsheet. Here was someone who didn't deal in dramas or ambiguities. The world, to Liam Carter, was a series of problems to be solved, efficiently and without fanfare. The prospect of crossing an ocean suddenly felt less like fleeing and more like a logical, well-supported next step. What I didn't expect was for the problem to follow me. The next afternoon as I left the library, Jake was there, leaning against the ancient oak next to my dorm, his arms crossed. He looked terrible, eyes bloodshot, hair disheveled. Chloe, he said, pushing off the tree and blocking my path. You're coming with me to apologize to Sloane. The band can't function without her. We just signed a management contract. Do you even realize you're ruining her future? Looking at his face, contorted with anger that was really just panicked entitlement, I almost laughed. The absurdity of it was breathtaking. Is that so? I said, my voice flat. Good. He flinched as if I'd struck him. Chloe. His voice dropped, laced with a confusion that was almost plaintive. What happened to you? How did you become so cruel? Become what? I asked, meeting his gaze head-on. Cold? Is that the word? If Sloane really left the band and vanished forever because of this, then fine. Call me cruel. But she won't. The band just signed a contract. They're about to start making real money. Why would she walk away? This is all just part of the show, Jake. And I'm not in the audience anymore. His face darkened further. Do you have to be so calculating? So nasty? A short, exhausted laugh escaped me. I don't have time for your drama, Jake. We're done. Going to Stanford. I have forms and visas and a future to prepare for. The last thing I'm going to waste my energy on is people who live in a world of performed emotions and fake consequences. Stanford. The word seemed to jolt him. Chloe, I just signed with the biggest agency on the East Coast. The producer says I'm a once-in-a-decade voice. I'm about to blow up. What more could you possibly want? I cut him off. Jake, I never wanted any of that. The spotlight, the fame, the once-in-a-decade, whatever. That was never what I loved about you. I took a deep breath, the truth finally crystal clear. Even if you become the biggest star on the planet, it wouldn't change anything. I still wouldn't love you anymore. He froze, stunned by the finality in my tone. His eyes searched mine, finding no crack, no hidden plea. You're impossible, he whispered, the anger fading into something hollow. No one can put up with this forever. I didn't dignify it with a response. I simply walked around him. When disappointment reaches its absolute limit, you don't scream or cry. You just stop talking. The moment he stopped standing beside me, the moment he chose to stand against me to defend someone else's ego, our 15-year story had reached its last page. I had my own book to write now, and it started with a spreadsheet and a plane ticket. I threw myself into the logistics of leaving with a focus that bordered on obsession. It was a blessed anesthesia. While Liam's spreadsheet provided the blueprint, the execution was a relentless grind. Doctor's appointments for vaccinations, notarizing a small mountain of documents, packing up my dorm room, sorting my life into take, store, and discard. I deliberately left no mental space for anything related to Jake Miller. But the world, especially the digital one, had other ideas. You can't erase a rising star even if you blacklist his accounts. Fragments of his new reality slipped through the cracks. Chromatic Fall passed their label's sound test. They released a debut EP. Critics called it derivative but energetic. Jake, with his photogenic grit and legitimately stunning voice, was the obvious standout. He quickly amassed a dedicated fanbase, largely female. The Jake/Sloane ship, now dubbed Jlone by fans, became a low-grade internet obsession. As for Sloane's dramatic exit and sudden return to the band, the story was murky. The official line was a brief personal hiatus. The gossip blogs whispered about emotional negotiations and clearing the air. Regardless, the band's heat grew. Sloane, by association, became a minor campus celebrity. She started a live stream, her smile a weapon of practiced sweetness. Honestly, being the only girl in the band is such a trip, she chirped to her growing audience, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The guys are, like, ridiculously overprotective. I'm basically their princess. She'd giggle, a sound like breaking glass to my ears. So which bandmate is your favorite? A comment would inevitably ask. Sloane would cover her mouth, her eyes dancing. Oh my gosh, you can't ask me that. I love them all equally, mostly. The tease was expert. Then one stream someone brought up Jake. What's the deal with you and Jake Miller? The chemistry is insane. She immediately adopted a shy, flustered expression, cheeks pinking on command. Stop. Don't ship us, you'll make it weird. How am I supposed to look at him during practice? He's, like, objectively gorgeous, it's embarrassing. She pushed at the air playfully, then masterfully pivoted. But we're just friends. Seriously. Another comment. I heard Jake has a girlfriend? Sloane's eyes lit up with faux conspiratorial glee. She leaned into the camera, lowering her voice. Hey, spill time. Since he's not here, we actually used to date. It's over now, obviously. What was she like? The digital mob demanded. Sloane tilted her head, a picture of thoughtful struggle. How do I put this? You know how Jake is, right? Super outgoing, life of the party, friends with everyone. He was the opposite. Kind of paranoid, honestly. Always thought someone was trying to take what was hers. She sighed, a world of patient suffering in the sound. I even felt bad for Jake sometimes. He treated me like I was some supervillain. I was so scared I quit the band for a while just to avoid the drama. I couldn't even look at him. He felt so guilty he waited outside my dorm for like 3 hours in the rain. Brought me that limited edition vinyl box set I'd wanted forever. I only came back because the band shouldn't suffer, you know? I'm not a quitter. The performance was award-worthy. Her comment section ignited with fury on her behalf. Poor Sloane. Dealing with a psycho like that. She's too nice. That girl must be jealous and mentally ill. Getting dumped was a mercy. For him. Then the digital hounds found old photos. Pictures of me and Jake from high school, from early college. But my image was altered, blurred, darkened, always caught mid-blink or with an unflattering expression. The comments were savage. I feel sorry for Jake. Was he held hostage? Heard it was an arranged by parents thing. Yikes. Sloane is in another league. This is an upgrade. Watching the hate train gain steam, Sloane would interject with magnanimous pity. Guys, please don't attack her. She's just a girl. Let's focus on the music. It was the perfect finishing touch, portraying herself as both victim and benevolent queen. I saw it all in fleeting, unavoidable glimpses. It should have hurt. It should have sent me spiraling. But a strange thing happened. Each vicious comment, each distorted photo, each of Sloane's carefully crafted lies, acted like a series of small, painful inoculations. They burned, but they hardened me. The person they were describing wasn't me. She was a character in Sloane's narrative, and I felt a detached, almost clinical pity for anyone who bought into it. My real world was deadlines and packing lists. My solace was the sterile, predictable environment of the lab, and the silent, efficient presence of Liam Carter. We were finalizing a complex data model for our last collaborative project before departure. I'd been stuck for 2 hours, a nested loop in my code refusing to resolve. I didn't hear him approach. Your iterative variable is conflicting with the downstream array call, his voice stated, matter of fact, right behind my shoulder. He leaned over, his hand covering mine on the mouse. His fingers were long, cool. With 3 precise clicks, he isolated the error, redefined the parameter, and the stalled progress bar on my screen sprang to life. Thanks, I breathed the word automatic. He didn't move his hand immediately. He stayed there, a solid, warm presence at my back, his gaze fixed on the now-flowing data visualization. The logic was sound. You just missed a layer of abstraction. It wasn't praise, it was a diagnostic report. That was Liam. He didn't offer emotional reassurance. He solved problems. In his quiet, uncompromising way, he was building a new framework for me. One based on competence, not drama. On solutions, not performances. The fandom wars, however, were reaching a fever pitch. Jake's solo fans and the militant Sloane shippers were at each other's throats online. The solo fans called Sloane a stage 5 clinger and a green tea girl. The shippers retorted that solo fans were just jealous haters who couldn't accept a real connection. The tension exploded during a live radio interview for a major station. The host, a veteran with a sly smile, went for the jugular. So Jake Miller, the internet demands to know. What is the nature of your relationship with your bassist, Sloane Hart? Jake, wearing sunglasses indoors, gave a polished, label-approved smile. Sloane's a great friend and an incredibly talented musician. We have a strong creative partnership. Sloane, sitting beside him, beamed. Yes, just friends. Jake is amazing to everyone in the band. Let's not let imaginations run wild, people. The host didn't relent. And currently, are you single, Jake? A barely perceptible pause. Then a nod. Yeah. Single. What's your ideal type? Someone lively, maybe? A fellow artist. Jake's smile tightened at the edges. Right now, my only relationship is with my music. It deserves my full attention. The moment the clip hit the web, his solo fans declared victory. Hear that? Single. Focused on his career. Someone take a hint. The shippers were despondent but defiant. I watched it on my phone in the campus coffee shop a week before my flight. I felt nothing. It was like watching weather patterns on a planet I'd left. Then a text from an old high school friend lit up my screen. "Chloe, have you seen? Jake is on Star Voice. He made it to the live rounds. He's against like actual famous people. It's insane." I tapped the link. It was a performance clip. The Jake on stage was different. The raw GarageBand edge was sanded down, replaced by a calculated, brooding intensity. Under a single, dramatic spotlight, he sat on a stool with an acoustic guitar. He closed his eyes and began to sing. The air left my lungs. It was Porch Light, the song he'd written for me the summer we were 16, sitting on the roof of his parents' garage. The melody was slower now, more melancholic, the arrangement polished to a high-gloss sheen for national television. But the words, my words, the ones I'd scribbled in a notebook he'd found, were unchanged. "Wait for me under the porch light / I'll find my way through any night." The camera cut to the audience. And there, in the front row, was Sloane Hart, watching him with tears glistening on her cheeks, one hand pressed to her heart as if to keep it from bursting. The video exploded with rainbow hearts and crying emojis. Jake Miller does ballads. I am deceased. This song, Porch Light, is a masterpiece. Self-written. He's singing to Sloane. Look at her face. That's love. She's literally his muse. This is the most romantic thing ever. I sat very still. The melody was a ghost, reaching across time and space to wrap around a version of me that no longer existed. He was singing our song on national television, using it to sell a narrative of star-crossed romance with another girl. The betrayal was so profound it circled back to being absurd. He was standing on the big stage just like he'd promised. But the promise had been for me. Now it was just another prop. And the girl in the song? Tomorrow she would be on a plane flying away from his spotlight forever. At the airport, the chaos was a welcome distraction. Liam, true to form, was a monument of efficiency. He handled check-in, navigated baggage drop, and guided us through security with the calm authority of a field marshal. I followed in his wake, my carry-on rolling obediently behind his, feeling a gratitude that was deeply quiet. It made me think of traveling with Jake. Always the frantic last-minute rush, me managing the tickets, the passports, the itinerary while he lost his headphones and complained about the lines. Liam's quiet competence was a different language, one I realized I preferred. In the departure lounge, he handed me a warm paper cup and a small almond croissant. Matcha latte, no sugar. You skipped breakfast. I took it, a lump forming in my throat. How did you? Observation, he said simply, pointing to the empty seat beside him. We have 90 minutes. You should rest. Just as I sat down, my phone rang. My body reacted before my brain, a deep-seated muscle memory, and I answered without looking. Chloe. Jake's voice was ragged, husky, trembling on the edge of control. The necklace. The silver one you gave me for my 19th birthday. Where did you put it? I can't find it anywhere. My fingers tightened on the phone. He sounded lost, a little boy rummaging in a dark room. And that blue tie, he continued, muttering now. The one we bought together for my cousin's wedding. You said it made my eyes look, you know. He was talking as if we'd had a tiff, as if I was just in the other room, as if the last month of silence and severance had never happened. The sheer, staggering denial of it all crashed over me. My voice came out cold and flat. Top drawer. Left side of your dresser. He was silent for a beat, then surged ahead, encouraged. What about my gray hoodie? The soft one. And my... Jake. I cut him off, sharp as a scalpel. We broke up. Dead air. Then his breathing grew heavy, labored, freighted with a frustration that bordered on petulance. Then what about all your stuff? The dresses I bought you? The purse? You left it all here. Should I just throw it out? And that stupid stuffed elephant you've had since you were 5? You don't want that either. His voice cracked. Fine. What about me? You don't want me anymore either. He took a shuddering breath, and when he spoke again it was thick, wet. Chloe, you don't need me anymore. I looked out the vast airport window at the lines of people flowing toward their gates, their own private dramas tucked away in carry-ons. The scale of it all made my own feel very small. Listen to me, I said, my voice terrifyingly calm even to my own ears. Jake, I don't need anything that belongs to you anymore. If you won't come get it, I'll bring it to you, he snapped, the petulant child re-emerging. In the past, this was our dance. He'd forget something at my place, I'd bring it over, and he'd pull me into a hug, murmuring apologies until I melted. He thought this was just a more dramatic version of the same script. I'll hire a courier service, I replied, each word a brick in a wall. They can box it all up. Text me the best address. Chloe, don't be like this. His voice softened, the tremor returning, a weapon he knew used to work. Did you hear my song? I sang Porch Light. On TV. I sang it for you. The second I started, it all came back. Everything. Just growing up. All my promises. Chloe, we have 15 years. You can't just walk away from that. He rushed on, a new, desperate energy in his tone. Look, I have top producers calling me now. This is my moment. Going public with a relationship right now. It's not strategic. What if we keep it quiet for a year or two? Just until I'm established. Then we'll tell everyone. I'll give you everything. Jake Miller, I interrupted, the wall now complete and impenetrable. Nothing you're saying has anything to do with my life. If not me, then who? He shot back, the ridiculous, arrogant certainty finally exploding out of him. You're really doing this? You're really going to be with someone else? He paused, as if forcing himself to utter a grievous concession. Fine. I admit it. I was distracted. Maybe I let Sloane get too close. But I swear on my music nothing happened. She's just a friend. A quiet, mirthless laugh escaped me. See, Jake? Even you admit now that she behaved inappropriately. But before? She was just straightforward. Just friendly. You knew what she was doing. You liked it. You liked the attention. You liked the possibility. You got bored with our quiet, steady thing and wanted the drama she offered. The silence on the other end was volcanic. I could feel him seething. Chloe, he said, his voice rising. I'm lowering myself here. What else do you want from me? I'll stay away from her. Just give me some time. A few years until my career is stable and then... Jake, I said, my voice finally shedding the last of its ice for a weary, final sadness. Maybe to you I was always just the quiet, simple, safe girl. But my love isn't a waiting room. And it doesn't come with a maybe later. From the moment you didn't choose me, the moment you didn't have the guts to draw a clear line for me, it was over. You go chase your wide-open sky. Go get your fame. I'm going to walk my own road. We're done. I ended the call. Then I blocked the number. Then, right there in the humming departure lounge, I began the methodical, surgical process of digital deletion. I removed him from every social media account, untagged myself from every photo. I archived, then deleted our text threads, years of conversation dissolving into the ether. I unfollowed every band page, every fan account. But 15 years is a long time. The memories weren't digital, they were neural, etched into me. The 5-year-old boy handing me a dandelion. The 10-year-old teaching me to ride a bike, his hands steady on the seat. The 15-year-old with his first guitar, singing off-key on my porch. The 20-year-old shining on a stage while I stood in the shadows, so proud and so terribly alone. Each memory, once a cherished treasure, now felt like an artifact from a lost civilization. My fingers scrolled and deleted, a numb, mechanical rhythm. A line from a long-ago literature class surfaced. Every beautiful beginning inevitably arrives at an imperfect end. Every love story starts as a dream no one wants to leave. The ending just arrives like tripping in the dark. They say a broken heart is a dull ache. This wasn't that. This was the profound, soul-aching sorrow of finally laying down a burden you'd carried for so long you'd forgotten it was heavy. Tears fell hot and silent onto my phone screen. They weren't for him. They were for the girl who'd given 15 years of unwavering faith and had nothing but digital ghosts to show for it. A plain white handkerchief appeared in my field of vision. He'd been sitting beside me the whole time, silently witnessing the entire messy unraveling. Flushing with shame, I took it and wiped my face. Sorry, the words wouldn't come. He didn't offer platitudes. He simply extended his hand, palm up. Give me your phone. I'll finish the purge. You should sleep. You've been awake since 4 a.m. I'll wake you for boarding. Then he placed one earbud in my palm. If you can't sleep, just close your eyes and listen. Gently, he pried the phone from my shaking hand. After a moment of stunned hesitation, I put the earbud in. Soft, complex instrumental music flowed out. Ambient, melodic, precisely the kind of thing that calmed my racing mind. It was another small, devastatingly accurate observation. The tension in my shoulders began to unknot. A deep, physical exhaustion held at bay by adrenaline and hurt rose up and pulled me under. The last thing I was aware of was the clean, sterile scent of Liam's detergent, and the steady, quiet sound of his breathing beside me as my own consciousness faded away. I awoke to a gentle pressure on my arm and Liam's quiet voice near my ear. "Chloe, it's time to board." I blinked, disoriented, the sterile brightness of the departure lounge rushing back. My neck was stiff. Liam was already standing, his own bag neatly stowed, my phone held out to me. "All done," he said, his expression as unreadable and calm as ever. He looked like a still, deep lake, surface unruffled, depths impossible to gauge. "Thanks," I mumbled, taking it. My face heated, remembering the tears, the purge, my vulnerability laid bare. He hadn't asked a single question. Hadn't offered empty comfort. He just solved the immediate problem. It was unnerving and, in a strange way, deeply respectful. The flight was a liminal space, a hum of white noise and dimmed cabin lights. As the plane climbed and the familiar world shrank into a patchwork of lights and geometry, I felt a curious lightness. It wasn't happiness. It was the profound, weightless relief of a decision finally, irrevocably made. I was untethered. It was terrifying. And it was freeing. We landed at SFO in a blur of fatigue and procedural hurdles. Liam once again was a force of nature. He navigated customs, collected our mountain of luggage, and hailed a rideshare to our prearranged housing with the detached precision of a logistics algorithm. I was sharing a small apartment near campus with two other exchange students. Maya, a bubbly art history major from Chicago, and Priya, a fiercely intense computer science PhD candidate from Bangalore. Liam's place, a slightly larger one-bedroom in a similar complex, was a 10-minute walk away. For convenience, he'd said when we'd booked them months ago. I'd assumed he meant proximity to campus. Now I wasn't so sure. The first week was a brutal adjustment. The coursework was a fire hose of advanced theory and relentless deadlines. My cooking skills, honed in a dorm kitchen, failed me spectacularly with unfamiliar ingredients and a temperamental stove. I existed on a grim diet of overcooked pasta, sad salads, and campus coffee. Meanwhile, my living situation quickly devolved into a special kind of hell. Maya held what seemed like a perpetual salon in our tiny living room, her art school friends debating loudly over cheap wine until 3 a.m. Priya, while quiet, lived in a state of organized chaos that spilled from her room like a glacier of papers, empty energy drink cans, and discarded circuit boards. Between the noise and the mess, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't study, and I was slowly starving. One evening, after a particularly disastrous attempt at cooking rice that resulted in a scorched pot and existential despair, Liam invited me over to discuss our joint research alignment for the semester. His apartment was a shock. It was minimalist, spotless, and eerily quiet. Everything had a place. Textbooks were arranged by subject and height. The kitchen gleamed. He listened without interruption as I vented about Maya's nocturnal symposiums and Priya's tech junk avalanche. I didn't even mention the burnt rice. When I finally ran out of steam, he set down his pen and pushed his glasses up his nose. "Chloe," he said, his tone clinical. "My roommate Mark transferred to a lab in Switzerland last week. His room is vacant. The lease allows for a sublet." He paused, his blue eyes holding mine with their usual directness. "Would you like to move in? The rent would be proportionally lower. And," he added as if it were a minor afterthought, "the meals would be more reliable." The offer hung in the pristine air. Move in with Liam Carter? The human spreadsheet? The idea was absurd. And yet, as I waited against another sleepless night listening to abstract expressionist debates, another dinner of charred carbohydrates, it didn't seem absurd at all. It seemed like the only sane solution. Beyond the food and sleep, there was the fundamental radiating aura of safety Liam projected. He was order. He was predictability. He was a man who carried an invisible barrier against the chaotic performative drama I had just fled. "Yes," I heard myself say. "I would. Thank you." His nod was a single, efficient dip of his chin. "Good. I'll draw up the sublet agreement tonight." Living with Liam was a revelation. My quality of life didn't just improve, It skyrocketed. I slept through the night in a room that was clean, quiet, and dark. I woke to the smell of coffee and often something cooking, scrambled eggs with herbs, oatmeal with perfect berries, once even homemade pancakes. Liam was almost pathologically tidy. He cleaned not with resentment, but with the same methodical focus he applied to data sets. I quickly learned that my attempts to help usually disrupted his systems, so my chores became specific, discrete tasks. Taking out the recycling, watering the single hardy succulent on the windowsill. We fell into a peaceful, productive rhythm. We'd study at opposite ends of the large dining table, the silence broken only by the scratch of his pen or the tap of my keyboard. In the evenings we'd often cook together, a practical, wordless ballet in the kitchen. He'd handle the knife work with terrifying speed and accuracy. I'd manage the sauces and timing. We learned each other's rhythms. He liked his space while cooking. I needed music. We compromised with low, wordless jazz. But sharing a home with this man, came with its own unique, quiet awkwardnesses. Doing laundry, I'd hurry to gather my clothes from the shared drying rack, my eyes accidentally skimming past his dark, practical things, cotton and wool hung with military precision. The sheer, unignorable scale of them, even folded, sent a flush up my neck. One rainy Saturday we stretched out on opposite ends of the sofa to watch a documentary on neural plasticity. Midway through, the film cut to a historical reenactment that suddenly turned unexpectedly, passionately amorous. The air in our clean, well-lit living room tightened instantaneously. We both froze, our eyes glued to the screen as if it were a volatile experiment. The narrator's voice droned on about reward pathways, as the actors on screen enthusiastically demonstrated them. I could feel the heat of Liam's body from 3 cushions away. The silence became a thick, palpable thing. We didn't look at each other until the scene mercifully ended. It was all so profoundly different from living with Jake. Jake, the eternal boy who left a trail of socks and guitar picks and half-empty glasses. Jake, who considered cleaning to be shoving everything under the bed. Jake, whose life was a series of loud, emotional crescendos and dramatic silences. Liam's world was one of quiet competence, of problems anticipated and solved. I felt simultaneously cared for and utterly independent. I'd thought living with someone so quiet would be lonely. It was the opposite. We discovered a surprising synchronicity. Academically, we were perfectly matched sparring partners. One night we debated the ethical implications of a new cognitive mapping technique so fiercely we lost track of time, arguing until 2 a.m. with a passionate intensity I'd never experienced with him, or with anyone for that matter. It was exhilarating. Our joint research project entered its critical phase. We spent long hours in the campus lab, a world of humming machines and the sharp scent of ozone and ethanol. I'd stopped seeking out any news from home, but the internet, in its infinite intrusiveness, still served up fragments. Jake's band had released their first full album. It got lukewarm reviews but sold decently on the strength of his voice and looks. Predictably, he'd officially gone solo shortly after. The label was pushing all its resources behind him. The only member with real star potential, they said. Sloane Hart, I glimpsed in a fleeting headline, had been pursuing other creative avenues. Translated, she'd been quietly dropped. Without Jake's reflected spotlight, she faded back into obscurity, just another aspiring musician in a crowded city. Jake, however, was everywhere. His face was on music blogs and promotional clips. The narrative had subtly shifted. The bad boy rocker was being polished into a tortured artist. And the song he kept performing, the one that got the biggest reaction, was always Porch Light. One day during a late-night lab session I hit a wall. A complex data visualization for our neuroimaging project refused to resolve correctly. No matter how I tweaked the parameters, the output was noise. Frustration prickled behind my eyes. I hadn't heard him come up behind me. You're forcing a linear interpretation on a nonlinear data cluster, Liam stated. He leaned in, his chest a warm line against my back, and reached around me. His hand closed over mine on the mouse, his long fingers cool and sure. He guided the cursor, isolated a subset of data I'd overlooked, and applied a different filter. On the third try, the screen bloomed into a stunning, coherent 3D map of neural connections, exactly as our hypothesis had predicted. It was an issue of scope, he said, his voice a low murmur near my ear. He didn't let go of my hand immediately. Thanks, I breathed, my heart doing a strange, unsteady rhythm against my ribs. He remained there for a moment, half embracing me from behind, his gaze fixed on the beautiful, swirling colors on the monitor. Your foundational logic was correct, he said, finally releasing my hand and straightening up. You just missed a recursive loop. It wasn't praise. It was a factual assessment. But it felt in that quiet, charged moment like something more. Time compacted and stretched in the strange way it does when you're deeply focused. Our research hurtled toward completion. I was vaguely aware, through the distant ripple of news alerts, that Jake had been cast on a major reality singing competition, Apex Voice. He was doing well. The porch light performance had become his signature. Then one morning my phone buzzed with a news notification I couldn't avoid. Breaking. Rising star Jake Miller involved in altercation with photographer outside LA club. Details emerging. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I tapped the link against my better judgment. There was a short, grainy video. Jake, his face contorted with a rage I recognized but had never seen so publicly unleashed, shoving a camera out of a man's hands. The tabloid headline screamed, "Star Voice contestants meltdown." The comments were a predictable mix of outrage and schadenfreude. Fame went to his head already. So much for the tortured artist, just a brat. He always gave off bad vibes. I closed the app. The knot dissolved, replaced by a hollow pity. This was the wide-open sky he'd wanted. It was full of vultures. A week later, another notification. This one was from my department. Our joint paper, the culmination of months of work with Liam, had not only been accepted for publication in the prestigious Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience, but we'd also been shortlisted for the annual Young Investigators Award. We were invited to present our findings at a conference in Boston. I looked up from my phone. Liam was across the table, frowning at a line of code. "Liam," I said. He glanced up. "We got it. The paper. And we're finalists for the YA Boston Conference." For a fraction of a second, his disciplined composure wavered. Something bright and fierce flashed in his eyes, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Then he gave a single sharp nod. "Good." The probability was high, given our methodology and results, but confirmation is optimal. He paused, then added, "Your work on the statistical analysis was pivotal." It was the closest he'd ever come to outright praise. A warm glow spread through me, entirely separate from the academic achievement. It was the glow of being seen for my mind, my work, my contribution. It was a feeling Jake's world had never offered. That evening, to celebrate the confirmation of optimal outcomes, as Liam put it, he cooked an elaborate meal: pan-seared salmon with a lemon dill sauce, roasted asparagus and crispy potatoes. We ate at the dining table, the overhead light soft. For once, we didn't talk about research. We talked about the bizarre architecture on campus, the peculiar habits of our professors, the best place to get coffee that didn't taste like motor oil. It was easy. It was normal. It felt for the first time in a very long time like a life. Later, as I washed the dishes and he dried, our shoulders brushing occasionally in the cramped kitchen, I felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of clarity. The high-stakes drama of my old life, the constant emotional earthquakes, the performative love and public betrayals, it all seemed like a fever dream. Here in this clean, quiet kitchen with a man who expressed care through spreadsheets and perfectly cooked salmon, I had found something far more valuable: peace. And in that peace, a new kind of strength was quietly growing, its roots digging deep into the fertile, undisturbed soil of a life I was building for myself. Our presentation in Boston was a triumph. On stage, under the bright lights of the conference hall, Liam was in his element. His voice was calm, authoritative, devoid of any theatrical flourish as he guided the audience through our complex research. He was a sculptor revealing a masterpiece, chip by logical chip. When he introduced me to present the statistical analysis, he didn't say, "my partner," or "my colleague." He said, "Chloe Sullivan, whose rigorous analytical framework is the backbone of our findings." It was the first time he'd ever called me just Chloe in a professional setting. The sound of my name in his steady voice, in that room full of brilliant strangers, felt like a solid anchor. I presented, my own nerves melting away as I explained the data, my eyes occasionally meeting Liam's from across the stage. His gaze was a steady, approving presence. After the applause during the mingling session, A senior researcher from MIT clapped Liam on the back. "Carter, this is groundbreaking work. And your collaboration is seamless. A true partnership." He turned to me. "Miss Sullivan, your interpretation of the variance was brilliant. You two make an exceptional team." Liam's hand found the small of my back, a light, proprietary touch that sent a current straight up my spine. "We do," he agreed simply, his eyes not leaving mine for a second. That night, in our adjoining hotel rooms, the adrenaline of success hummed in the air between us. We ordered room service, too keyed up to venture out. Sitting on the floor of my room, picking at a cheese plate, the conversation drifted from synaptic pruning to the terrible abstract art in the lobby. "It looks like a neural network had a seizure," Liam observed deadpan. I snorted, laughing into my glass of water. "Maybe it's a meta-commentary on the conference." "Ineffective communication," he declared and took a deliberate bite of cracker. The ease was intoxicating. Here, away from our apartment, from campus, the professional boundaries felt thinner. The personal space we'd so carefully curated now shared hotel wall thin. The silence that fell between topics was charged, but not with the old awkwardness. It was a new, aware tension. My phone, charging on the nightstand, buzzed insistently. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. "It might be the department," Liam said, ever practical. With a sigh, I crawled over and picked it up. It wasn't the department. It was a barrage of messages from old acquaintances, links to gossip sites. The top headline made my blood run cold. Apex Voice finalist Jake Miller in hot water. Ghostwriting scandal erupts. I tapped the link, numb. It was a deep dive exposé from an indie music blog. They'd compared Jake's published self-penned lyrics from his early band days to unpublished songbooks of a struggling older songwriter Jake had briefly taken lessons from. The parallels were undeniable, damning. The article didn't just stop there. It dug into his college records, finding discrepancies, suggesting his admission essay and even coursework had been heavily assisted. The comments were a bloodbath. Fraud. All image, no talent. He really thought he could fake his way through a music and academic career? This is what happens when you build a house on lies. Then another alert. Sources. Sloan Hart preparing tell-all interview about toxic relationship with Jake Miller. The world I'd left behind was immolating in public. I felt no schadenfreude. Just a vast, weary sadness. I showed the screen to Liam. He read it, his expression not changing. He handed the phone back. "Consequences are data points in the algorithm of choice," he said, his voice quiet. His inputs were dishonest. The output was always going to be collapse. It was the most Liam-esque moral judgment imaginable. And it was absolutely right. "I need air," I whispered. He stood up immediately. "I'll come with you." We walked the quiet, historic streets of Boston in the cool night. I didn't speak. He didn't press. His presence beside me was a silent, solid fact. The chaos unfolding on my phone felt galaxies away. When we returned to the hotel, the silence in my room was different. The professional success, the distant implosion of my past, the intimacy of the dark streets. It all coalesced into a thick, potent atmosphere. "Chloe," Liam said, standing by the door to his own room. He'd taken his glasses off, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Without them, he looked younger, more vulnerable, the sharp intellect in his eyes unmasked and startlingly direct. "Yes. The conference, it went well." "It did." He took a step closer. The careful distance he always maintained was gone. "Your work. It was exceptional." "Thank you. So was yours." My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. He was close enough now that I could see the faint stubble along his jaw, could smell the clean, sharp scent of his soap. The orderly, predictable world of Liam Carter seemed to be tilting on its axis. "Liam," I started, unsure of what I was even asking. He didn't let me finish. In one fluid motion he closed the final distance, his hands coming up to cradle my face. His touch was not tentative, not questioning. It was sure, deliberate, as if he'd calculated this moment and found the probability of success acceptable. Then he kissed me. It was nothing like I could have imagined. It wasn't the practiced, performative passion of Jake. It was intense, focused, and utterly consuming. It was a hypothesis being tested with absolute commitment. It was logic in order dissolving into pure, undeniable sensation. My mind short-circuited. My hands came up, gripping the front of his crisp dress shirt, holding on as the world narrowed to the pressure of his lips, the warmth of his hands, the quiet, desperate sound at the back of his throat. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathless. He rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed. "I have wanted to do that," he said, his voice rough, "since the day you walked into advanced neurobiology with a coffee stain on your thesis draft and corrected Professor Vance's flawed premise." A laugh bubbled out of me, hysterical and light. "That was 2 years ago." He opened his eyes. The look in them was fierce, possessive, and entirely new. "I am aware. I am a patient man, Chloe. But my patience has parameters." He kissed me again, softer this time, a promise and a question. And for the first time since I'd walked into that fateful party, I didn't overthink. I didn't analyze the risks or the consequences. I just let go. I met his certainty with my own. The conference ended. We returned to California, but everything had changed. The unspoken thing between us was now spoken, acted upon, a living, breathing reality in our pristine apartment. It was exhilarating and disorienting. Liam, the man of spreadsheets and silence, was also a man of startling, focused passion. The wall he kept between himself and the world didn't disappear, but he allowed me, only me, inside it. We didn't define it. We didn't need to. It simply was. A new variable in our shared equation. A few weeks later, I was working at the dining table when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A familiar, heavy feeling settled in my gut. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text popped up from the same number. "Chloe, it's Jake. Please. I'm in San Francisco." I stared at the words. The past wasn't done. It was on my doorstep. Liam looked up from his laptop, sensing the shift in me. "What is it?" "He's here. In the city." Liam's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He closed his laptop with a definitive click. "Do you want to see him?" "No." "Then you don't have to." But the text kept coming, growing more pleading, more desperate. "I just need to talk. 5 minutes. I came all this way. I'm at a hotel downtown. Please, Chloe." The guilt, that old, conditioned response, tried to rise. I squashed it. I had nothing to feel guilty for. Yet a part of me, the part that remembered the boy on the garage roof, wanted closure, not for him but for that ghost of myself. I wanted him to see finally that I was gone. "I think," I said to Liam, my voice steady, "I need him to see that I've moved on. For good." Liam studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right. But I'm coming with you." "You don't have to." "I'm coming," he repeated, and it wasn't open for debate. We took a rideshare to the upscale hotel downtown. My hands were cold. Liam's hand covered mine, warm and firm. "You owe him nothing," he said quietly. "Remember that." Jake was waiting in the sleek, minimalist lobby, pacing near a grotesquely expensive-looking abstract sculpture. He looked diminished. The rock star edge was gone, replaced by a haggard anxiety. He was thinner, his famous eyes shadowed. When he saw me, a desperate hope flared in them. Then he saw Liam, walking a step behind me, a silent, tall sentinel. The hope curdled into confusion, then dawning, horrified understanding. "Chloe," he breathed, rushing forward. He ignored Liam completely. I knew you'd." "You said 5 minutes, Jake." I interrupted, my voice cool. "What do you want?" He flinched at my tone. His eyes raked over me, then flickered to Liam again, standing so protectively close. "Who is this?" The question was a demand. "A friend," I said. "A friend," Jake repeated, a nasty edge creeping into his voice. "Right. Is he why you ended things? You were already with him, weren't you?" He took a step closer, his anger reigniting. "Did you cheat on me, Chloe?" The audacity was breathtaking. Liam's hand tightened on mine, but he remained silent, letting me steer this. I actually laughed, a short, sharp sound. "No, Jake. I ended things because you were emotionally cheating with Sloane Hart in front of me and the entire internet. Remember?" He waved a dismissive hand as if swatting a gnat. "That was nothing." He meant nothing. "This," he jabbed a finger toward Liam. "This is real. You left me for him." "I left you because of you," I said, each word a hammer blow. "He," I gestured to Liam, "was just the piece I found after the war you started." Jake's face crumpled. The anger bled out, leaving raw, ugly pain. "Chloe, please. It's all gone. The label dropped me. The show cut me. The ghostwriting thing. It was blown out of proportion. Sloan is selling lies to anyone who will listen. He raked his hands through his hair. I have nothing left. Nothing but you. Our history. That's real. That's the only real thing I have left in the world. Tears shone in his eyes. No one will ever love you like I did. Like I do. We were kids together. We have roots. He sounded so sure, so tragically convinced of his own narrative. I looked at him, this broken, handsome stranger, and felt the last tiny fragment of my old love dissolve into pity. Jake, I said, my voice softening not with affection but with finality. When I'm with him, I don't have to worry about who's texting him. I don't have to pretend to like parties that make me anxious. I don't have to watch another woman hang all over him while he calls me sensitive. I sleep through the night. I eat meals that don't come from a takeout box. He makes me feel safe. He lets me be quiet. He loves my mind, not just the idea of me. I took a deep breath. You once loved me like that. But you chose something else. And I've chosen this. He stared at me, his lips parted as if I were speaking a language he'd once known but had long forgotten. He looked from my resolute face to Liam's impassive one, and the truth seemed to physically hit him. His shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him, leaving a hollow shell. You don't love me anymore, he whispered. It wasn't a question. No, I said, gentle but absolute. I don't. For a moment he just stood there lost. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous, silent lobby. He didn't look back. Liam and I stood there for a moment, watching him disappear into the gleaming hotel. The air felt cleaner somehow. Lighter. Are you all right? Liam asked, his voice low. I turned to him. I saw the quiet intensity in his eyes, the protective set of his shoulders, the man who had crossed an ocean with me in spreadsheets and silence, who had kissed me in a Boston hotel room as if it were the most logical and vital conclusion in the world. Yes, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. I am. We walked out into the California sunshine. The past was finally, truly behind me. And the future, complex and unknown and full of promise, was walking silently beside me, his hand firmly clasped in mine. In the weeks that followed the hotel lobby confrontation, a profound stillness settled over my life. It was as if a persistent low-grade fever had finally broken. The specter of Jake Miller, which had haunted my digital periphery and emotional landscape for so long, was gone. Truly gone. He didn't text. He didn't call. The news cycle, having chewed him up and spat him out, moved on to fresher scandals. The silence from that quarter was absolute, and it was a balm. The space he left behind wasn't empty. It was filled with the quiet, deliberate architecture of my new world, built in partnership with Liam Carter. Our relationship, now an acknowledged fact between us, was unlike anything I'd ever known. There were no grand declarations, no dramatic defining the relationship talks. It simply evolved with the same logical, efficient beauty as one of our research models. We went from research partners who lived together to partners in every sense of the word. It felt less like falling and more like arriving. Liam was a study in controlled contrast. In public, at the lab, or in seminars, he was the same. Cerebral, reserved, a man of few words and precise actions. But in the privacy of our apartment, a different man emerged. The intensity he poured into data was redirected, focused entirely on me. His kisses were still calculated, but now the calculation was one of pleasure, of learning what made me gasp. His touch, once only functional, became exploratory, possessive, shockingly tender. One Saturday morning, I was trying to perfect a particularly finicky pastry recipe, flour dusting every surface like a winter storm. He found me there, scowling at a lump of dough. Your hydration ratio is off, he observed, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. He was wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, his hair uncharacteristically messy. He looked devastatingly approachable. I'm following the recipe, I grumbled. The recipe is an average. Your local humidity is 12% lower than the test kitchen's. You need to adjust. He came up behind me, his chest to my back, and guided my hands as he added a precise tablespoon more water to the mix. His chin rested on my shoulder. Need. Like this. It was intimate in a way that felt deeper than passion. It was domestic. It was his way of being close. He was teaching me, building something with me in our kitchen. Later we painted the spare room, the one that had been Mark's, a soft, warm gray. We worked in comfortable silence, the rhythmic swish of rollers and the smell of latex paint filling the air. It was during a break, paint smudged on his cheek and my forearm, that he spoke without looking at me. "The lease is up in 3 months, he said, carefully cutting in along the ceiling with a brush. My heart gave a little stutter. "I know. I've analyzed 16 properties within a 20-minute commute to the lab. 2 meet our optimal criteria for space, light and sound insulation." He finally glanced at me, his blue eyes clear behind his safety glasses. "I'd like you to see them. If you're interested in renewing our collaborative living arrangement." A smile tugged at my lips. A collaborative living arrangement. It was such a Liam way to ask me to move in with him officially and permanently. "I'd like that," I said. "Do your spreadsheets have a tab for closet space?" "Naturally. And water pressure ratings." We found a place. A small, sunny duplex with a backyard just big enough for a couple of chairs and a grill we'd never use. We signed the lease together. It felt more significant than any document I'd ever signed. It was a blueprint for a future. Our research too was flourishing. The acclaim from the Boston conference led to grant funding, a small team of undergraduates to manage, and a dizzying new level of respect from our peers. We were no longer just promising students. We were Carter and Sullivan, a known entity. Our arguments over methodology were now legendary in our lab. Heated, brilliant, and always ultimately productive. We pushed each other. We made each other better. One evening, after a particularly long day, we were slumped on our new sofa, takeout containers littering the coffee table. A mindless reality competition show played on the TV. It was the sort of thing we'd never watch, a relic of my old life with Jake where such shows were dissected like scripture. Suddenly, a familiar face filled the screen. Sloane Hart. She was a contestant on a second-tier dating show called Love Island. She looked different, harder, her smile tighter, the girl-next-door sweetness replaced by a calculated, thirsty glint in her eyes. She was explaining her type to the camera. "I'm just over bad boys, you know," she said with a hollow laugh. "I want a guy who's stable. Smart. Like a doctor or a scientist or something. A real grown-up." The irony was so thick it was almost tragic. Liam, who had been half asleep, opened one eye and looked at the screen. "Her stated preference contradicts her demonstrated behavioral history," he murmured. "The probability of a successful match based on that criteria is near zero." I burst out laughing. He always saw the data in everything. I reached over and took his hand, lacing our fingers together. He squeezed back, his eyes closing again. This was our life. It was built on a foundation of mutual respect, intellectual fire, and a quiet, deep-running current of love that expressed itself in corrected code, perfectly seasoned meals, and shared silences that were never empty. I thought that was the end of the story. My past was a closed book. But the universe, it seemed, had one final ironic twist to serve. It was finals week of our final semester before the PhD program truly began. We were buried in work, surviving on coffee and mutual exasperation with a notoriously difficult professor. I stumbled into the lab at 7 a.m., my brain already buzzing with metabolic pathways, to find a small crowd gathered around a computer monitor. They fell silent when they saw me. My friend Anya, a fellow neuroscientist, gave me a pained look. "Chloe, you might want to see this." Dread, cold and familiar, pooled in my stomach. "See what?" She turned the monitor. It was a gossip site, but a big one. The headline screamed, "From rock star to rock bottom. Jake Miller's shocking new life revealed." There were pictures. Jake, looking a decade older, unshaven and hollow-eyed, working behind the counter of a generic hardware store in what looked like a strip mall in Ohio. Another photo showed him leaving what was clearly a community mental health clinic. The article was brutal, detailing his fall from grace, the loss of his record deal, his failed attempt at a comeback tour that never materialized, his retreat to his hometown. "Sources close to Miller," it read, "say he struggles with depression and anxiety, and is a shadow of his former self. His once promising future in music is now considered permanently derailed." The lab was utterly quiet. These people knew me as Carter and Sullivan. Only Anya knew fragments of my past. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It just popped up on my feed." I stared at the pixels that composed Jake's defeated face. I didn't feel vindication. I didn't feel pity. I felt a distant clinical sadness, the same way I might feel reading a tragic case study. Here was a life that took a wrong turn, a series of disastrous choices leading to a predictable, sad outcome. The boy I'd loved was truly, completely gone, not just from my life but from himself. "It's okay," I said, my voice steady. I meant it. "It's just very far away." I went through my day on autopilot. I presented my final project, aced my last exam. But the image of Jake in that hardware store apron lingered in the back of my mind, a ghost from a life I'd narrowly escaped. That night, as Liam and I packed up our lab space for the semester, I told him. He listened, wiping down a microscope lens with meticulous care. "His outcome was statistically likely," he said finally, placing the lens back in its case. "A personality profile built on external validation, lacking a core integrated identity, is highly susceptible to collapse under systemic failure." Again he distilled human tragedy into a logical principle. And again he wasn't wrong. "It just feels so wasteful," I said, leaning against a lab bench. "All that talent. All that life." Liam closed the case and came to stand in front of me. He took my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing my cheekbones. His gaze was direct, unwavering. "Chloe," he said, his voice low and intense. "Your life is not wasteful. Your talent is not squandered. You are here. You are building something real. You are loved." He paused, the words seeming to cost him something. "By me. Deeply and illogically." It was the most unscientific, emotionally raw thing he had ever said. My eyes filled with tears. He didn't tell me not to be sad about the past. He simply pulled me into the solid, undeniable reality of my present, of us. He kissed me there in the empty, clean-smelling lab, surrounded by the tools of our shared future. It was a kiss of possession, of reassurance, of a love that was as complex and solid as the research we conducted. Later, at home in our duplex, as I was finalizing my paperwork to formally enter the PhD program, an email notification popped up. It was from the department head. The subject line: Carter and Sullivan, Summit Fellowship nomination. The Summit was the most prestigious, fully funded research fellowship in the country for young scientists. It was a golden ticket. I called out to Liam, who was in the kitchen experimenting with a new recipe for kimchi. "Liam, the Summit nomination." He walked in, wiping his hands on a towel. A slow, real smile spread across his face, a rare, unguarded expression that transformed him completely. I received the notification as well. The probability was low, but the potential payoff is substantial. He came over, looked at the email over my shoulder, and then, to my shock, he let out a short, triumphant laugh. He pulled me up from my chair and spun me around in a circle, right there in our sunny living room. It was a gesture of pure, unadulterated joy, so unlike him it took my breath away. When he set me down, he was still smiling. "We did it, Chloe. We." The word echoed. We had done it. We had built a life, a partnership, a future from the ashes of my old one. The ghost of Jake Miller, still haunting a hardware store in Ohio, was finally laid to rest in my heart, not with bitterness, but with the quiet acknowledgement that some paths are meant to diverge. My path was here in this room with this brilliant, complicated, steadfast man who expressed love in data points and kimchi recipes, and once, memorably, by spinning me around in a moment of pure shared victory. The past was a country I had left. The present was a collaboration I cherished. And the future, for the first time, shone ahead of us not as a scary unknown, but as a series of fascinating, solvable problems we would tackle side by side. It was more than enough. It was everything. The end.